Hi everyone, I'm Rincey and this is Rincey Read. Today I'm going to be doing a review on Bad Feminist by Roxane. This is a collection of essays and it clearly talks about feminism, but it also just talks about gender and politics and race and pop culture and just a whole wide range of things, which is everything that I love in an essay collection. My favorite kind of essay collections are the ones that basically touch a lot on pop culture, and Roxane is just so in tune with modern pop culture, or not even just modern pop culture, but just generally. Like, she knows so much about everything. It's insane to me how smart she is. The essay collections are split up into 4 parts. I believe the first one is all about just like personal essays about Roxane Gay. The second part is about like gender. The third part is about like race and politics, I believe, and then there's a separate section about the entertainment industry and things like that. So you can kind of like read these in groups and get like a fuller picture about the things that she's talking about. She makes a lot of references, like I mentioned earlier, but you don't necessarily need to know all of the references in order to like understand what she's talking about. She tends to do a pretty good job of explaining things that happened in like movies and TV shows, so that way you can understand what she's talking about. So if you haven't actually seen them yourself, you won't be like missing out or completely lost on her points and her topics. But I will say that the essays that I connected with the most are the ones that I actually understood the topics and the ideas that she was touching on, being aware of the news items that she's talking about and being aware of like the TV shows she's talking about, things like that. They all help enhance the experience, I believe. So I feel like not necessarily that you're going to be hindered if you don't know it, but I feel like the more that you know, the more that you'll enjoy this. I really enjoyed this essay collection, but one thing I do want to say is that I enjoyed this without necessarily agreeing with it. I feel like with a title like Bad Feminist, or even just talking about feminism in general, there is sort of a divisiveness that comes to this topic, or just comes to the idea of equality, race relations, gender relations, all of these different things, and people tend to just pick their side and stick to it. And I feel like I'm someone who enjoys listening to both sides of the conversation, and so essay collections like this really appeal to me because I like it when I read about things that I don't necessarily agree with, because I feel like you have to understand both sides in order to understand where you fall within it. Because if you just make assumptions, or if you just only listen to people who are similar to you, you're not really getting a full picture, and your belief system, I feel like, is slightly flawed. I feel like essay collections like this that have a very strong point of view or have very specific ideas are really good for everyone across the spectrum to read, because even if you don't necessarily agree with the things that Roxane Gay is talking about, the topics that she brings up are very topical. I probably could have phrased that better, but whatever. And the ideas that she talks about are very much things that are very prevalent in today's society, that I think that no matter what side of the spectrum you fall on, you should be aware of them and then decide where you stand on the issue. Like, this is a book that I've already been recommending to people I know in real life, because I think that this would be a really interesting essay collection to talk about with other people. There's certain essays in here where Roxane Gay makes arguments, and it's really interesting reading them because you can see, or at least I feel like I could see, some of the flaws in her arguments, but then at the same time she sort of talks about how feminism isn't about being perfect and having perfect ideals. The idea behind being a bad feminist is the fact that we're all going to mess up, even if we call ourselves feminists. There are ways in which every feminist fails at being a feminist. There are things that we like, things that we enjoy that probably other people would frown upon, and it's like, if you call yourself a feminist, how can you like those things? And I think that's a really interesting concept to just explore and just see how you compare to the things that Roxane Gay talks about. One thing I will say about this essay collection is that it can at times feel a little bit repetitive. The way I read this is that I read this along with reading other books, so I would just read a couple essays at a time and then put it down and read something else. I feel like if you read this straight through, it would be not as enjoyable, because by the end of the book I feel like you would get a little bit worn out. And I feel like that's true for most essay collections and most short story collections. A lot of times, at least for me personally, short story collections and essay collections, can't be just read in one sitting. For me, I like to break them up with other stories because the themes and the ideas can feel a bit much personally. In the end, I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. I really enjoyed this book, and I feel like the main reason why I enjoyed this book is because it made me think. Again, I'm not going to say that I am 100% on board with everything that Roxane Gay has to say. For example, one essay collection that's in here talks about the idea of unlikable characters, and it's really interesting because I was reading this, and in another essay she talks about Sweet Valley High and the Sweet Valley series and how she's more of a Jessica rather than an Elizabeth, and I feel like Jessica is a rather unlikable character. And so while she was writing her essay collection about unlikable characters, all I could keep thinking was, do you just like unlikable characters because you feel like you connect with them more the same way that I might like likable characters because I like connecting with them more? So that's just an idea that I had that I was thinking about while I was reading that, and just an example of how you can enjoy essay collections without necessarily being like, yes, I 100% agree with all the things that you're saying. I feel like you can enjoy this no matter where your belief system lies because the writing is so good and the topics are so interesting, at least for me personally. Or maybe it's just because I agreed with more than half of the collection that I found it enjoyable. I'm not really sure. But again, I feel like because I didn't necessarily agree with everything, I ended up liking it more than if I did necessarily agree with everything that she had to say. So yeah, those are my quick thoughts on Bad Feminist by Roxane Gay. If you've read this, and I know a couple of you have already, feel free to leave a comment down below letting me know what you thought of it. Also let me know like what essays in this collection really stuck out to you or which ones really resonated with you. So yeah, that's all I have for now. Thanks for watching.